Hi everyone. In this video today, we will be talking about religious diversity, Islamophobia, and faith-based schools. We will review 3 articles that cover the following topics: spirituality, religiousness, and happiness in children, teaching and Islamophobia, and Roman Catholic schooling in Ontario. Let's start with Spirituality, Religiousness, and Happiness in Children aged 8 to 12 years, written by Mark Holder, Ben Coleman, and Judy Wallace. 2 main terms that will be discussed are spirituality and religiousness. Spirituality is defined by an inner belief system that a person relies on for strength and comfort. Religiousness is defined by institutional and religious rituals, practices, and beliefs. Holder et al. Performed a study that examined the relationship between spirituality and happiness in 320 children aged 8 to 12 in both public and private schools. They also cross-examined these parameters with religion and temperament. While spirituality and religiousness may promote happiness in children and adults for similar reasons, there are also differing factors. Some factors that apply to adults and not to children are marriage, spousal happiness, and job satisfaction. Consent for the study was given by both children and parents, and permission was received by school districts, principals, and teachers. A set of questionnaires, self-reports, and surveys were given to the children and their parents to establish data. Listed here are the 6 questionnaires and surveys that were distributed. Numbers 1, 2, and 3 assessed happiness. Numbers 4 and 5 assessed spirituality and religiousness. And number 6 assessed temperament. The image of the 7 faces across the top of this slide is actually taken from the FACES scale, which asked both parents and children to identify happiness levels with relation to these images. The results showed that a child's gender and where they attend school are not significant predictors of happiness. However, a child's temperament is a significant predictor. There are 4 areas in temperament: shyness, emotionality, activity, and sociability. Considering temperament in this study, shyness and emotionality were negatively correlated with happiness, while activity and sociability were positively correlated with a child's happiness. A child's level of shyness, emotionality, and activity were all significant predictors of happiness. Sociability, although positively correlated, was not a significant predictor. Holder et al. Also examined hierarchical regressions past gender, school, and temperament. They also considered the personal domain, communal domain, and transcendental domain. We'll conclude this section of the video with the final findings of Holder et al. They found that children who are more spiritual are happier, that temperament was found to be both correlated and a strong predictor of happiness, and that the personal and communal domains are strong predictors of happiness as well. Overall, the transcendental domain was not associated with children's happiness. This includes frequency of religious practice, praying, and meditating. There were a number of limitations that were discussed in this study. 2 main ones were that the questionnaires assessing meaning in life may have inflated the results, and that the sample was mainly Caucasian and Christian. Further research considering other ethnic and religious groups is needed. Taking into account these limitations, the study found that a child's gender, where they go to school, and the frequency that they practice religion are not significant in determining their happiness. What was found to be significant in determining a child's happiness was their spirituality, temperament, and the personal and communal domains. This study found that spirituality but not religious practice contributes to happiness in children. Next, we'll discuss teaching and Islamophobia.
The second article is titled, Teachers and Teaching Islam and Muslims in Pluralistic Societies, Claims, Misunderstandings, and Responses by Sarvaroz Niyazov. This paper calls for the engagement of teachers in the education of Muslim minority students and sources its data from different literature reviews about teachers' work with Muslim students, along with a project that uses preliminary data from interviews with 6 public high school teachers and research on pedagogy in evolving Muslim societies. Muslims represent the largest non-Christian religion in North America in the last 25 years, with half of Canadian Muslims being between the ages of 15 and 44. The population of Canadian Muslims grew by 128% between 1991 and 2001 due to immigration, high birth rates, and conversion. They are well educated, with a third holding an undergraduate or graduate degree, and they're financially well-to-do and come from diverse ethnicities, languages, and ideologies. 95% of Canadian Muslims are legal citizens. Muslim communities have different strategies for living in the West, ranging from rejection, adaptation, integration, and assimilation. A number of Muslim scholarly representatives state that the constitutional rights for practicing religion in Canada has become a better and safer environment for Muslims. Majority of North American Muslims attend secular schools. However, private Islamic schools are increasing, with 50 schools in Canada, 36 of which are in Ontario. Formal Islamic schools are not the only form of Islamic education, as many students receive teachings in Islam through mosques, weekend schools, and community practices. The diversity of students in terms of color, language, ethnicity, religion, and socioeconomic backgrounds is predominantly faced with Anglo-Saxon Judeo-Christian teaching population, although there is a call for the inclusion of non-white cultural and historical perspectives. Those changes have not been organized, which helped lead the increase in the alienation and nationalist radicalization of youth, as opposed to having them assimilate in Canadian society. Research on teachers of Muslim students has been treated as insignificant, although all teachers in the study acknowledged racism and admitted that they may be contributing to it subconsciously, due to a wider scope of ethnic prejudices and lack of anti-racist education. Racism and Islamophobia exists in different levels within schools and teachers. Teachers who are largely Eurocentric ignore or diminish the historic and contemporary contributions of Muslims to science, architecture, geography, and other areas. This has led anti-Western Islamists to boycott public schools in favor of Islamic schools. On the other hand, multiculturalists see this as a matter of ignorance and encourage the enrichment of public school curricula. Teachers also noted the concept of megaculture versus microculture, which is the student's individual culture influenced by their home, family members, and friends. It views culture as multi-layered and complex, and as a tool of manipulation or empowerment. Teachers should not simply view their students as Muslims with the teacher's superficial knowledge of Islam. It can also lead to further racism and stereotypes. Rather, simply encounter the student as a young person who wants to be educated. Recent shifts in education towards political correctness and uncritical celebration of differences is viewed as diminishing the student's ability to develop analytical skills and does not expose them to multiple viewpoints. The article encourages educators to take risks in both public and Islamic schools and address controversial issues and learn from mistakes without fear of being called racist or phobic. Although all teachers in the study were open to including Muslim cultures and history in the curriculum, many teachers have certain apprehensions of all religions, including Islam. Shortcomings existed in the research of this paper, and teachers included in it may have not disclosed all their personal and systemic vulnerabilities.
Thanks, Besma. Now I'm going to discuss the reading, Roman Catholic Schooling in Ontario, Past Struggles, Present Challenges, Future Direction, by Kay Brennan. In order to understand the Roman Catholic School Board and its communities, I feel it's important to discuss its history. So, Roman Catholic communities have had struggles of achieving equal status since the earliest European settlement some 200 years ago. In order to avoid assimilation and erosion of their culture, customs, and values, Roman Catholic communities band together their own villages and towns, forming their own networks, trade groups, and establishing their own schools and school practices. Roman Catholic communities always felt that they had to be on the defense to nurture and mold their youth on their own terms, as they were often ridiculed by the Protestant majority. The Roman Catholic School Board today. Roman Catholic high schools today house a diverse range of students from all walks of life, including other Christians and non-Christian denominations. Now, the inclusive nature of their schools represent the multidimensional ethnic, racial, and faith-based communities that exist throughout Ontario. The main difference today between the Catholic and public school board is that the public school board acknowledges faith as an aspect of spiritual identity. The author employed a single case study methodology to gather research data on youth identity in schooling, education, and anti-colonial oppression, versus community empowerment in Ontario Roman Catholic secondary schools. The methodology incorporated survey and interview data from 10 schools across the Toronto metropolitan area, analyzing critical ethnography through an anti-colonial discursive framework. Now, based on this research, the author argues that the modern Ontario Roman Catholic school system is still a site of colonial supremacy, which dictates and delivers Eurocentric assimilationist knowledge while ignoring the lived histories and identities of the current youth in the system. As early as 1791, there was publicly subsidized education available and was targeted towards male children of Upper Canada's social elite and was taught and run through the lens of the Church of England. In the early 19th century, clergymen from both the Roman Catholic and Protestant churches taught students in preparation for a life in public service. It was not until 1841 that Roman Catholic schools were finally recognized. Egerton Ryerson, who became the first chief superintendent of education in Upper Canada, wanted to instill civic and moral character in all of Ontario's citizens. His goal was to lead all school children away from the evils of Catholicism. He was going to do this by implementing opening and closing exercises consisting of the Lord's Prayer and readings from Protestant scripture in all common, so public and Protestant, schools across the region. Ryerson pushed for free, universal, and academically progressive public school systems. Now, after years of rallying up and vocalizing this inequality at all public, political, and social events, the Roman Catholic schools started receiving government funding in 1863. Now, in 1867, they were recognized as separate but valid institutions in the colony of Canada. Although they were recognized in 1867, the problems didn't stop there. In the 20th century, separate schools such as Catholic schools were not allowed to offer education beyond grade 10 if there was a competing public school in the same district. Now, post-World War II, the Catholic School Board argued for equal funding past grade 10. However, this plea reconfirmed the lack of high school funding, thus recommending that the Catholic School Board only offer education up to grade 6. In the 1960s, the public system initiated the removal of any religious routine in their schools by eliminating the daily Christian prayer in secondary schools. Now, removing the religious aspect in the public system allowed all religions and cultures to feel more comfortable and accepted. In 1971, the Roman Catholic School Board was given the option to establish schools beyond junior grades with limited financial support. Now, in 1982, they were officially established with equal funding up to grade 10. However, only with partial subsidies for grades 11 to 13. Finally, on June 12, 1984, after years of trying to get equal funding for all grades, they finally succeeded. Roman Catholic schools are in constant fear of losing school integrity, as their doors are currently open to all religions and cultures. The public board argues that funding the Catholic board is religious discrimination as no other denominational faith receives such funding, that there is also a danger to job security as enrollment in the public system is decreasing, and that there has been a call to protect the self-esteem and social acceptance of non-Christian students in all schools. They are also worried that there will be an insidious effect on a democratic and multicultural society. Now, in the Catholic system, for non-Roman Catholic youth, their hidden identity remains necessary for avoiding alienation that is expected from peers within the system. Now, for students who strongly identify themselves with a religion, this forces them to hide who they truly are. However, in the public system, some students can feel threatened to take part in a space that has no sense of the sacred. Roman Catholic schooling, are they truly communities of respected identities? Now, the fluctuation in what appears to be a disinterest in faith has prompted Roman Catholic schools to push the concepts of church during class time more passionately. Now, without a value-based system of learning and growth, many argue that present and future generations will not be able to nurture supportive and sincere citizenship in community. Is it possible to have alternative learning within spiritual environments? Well, just outside Amsterdam, the Sofa Islamic School is an example of a publicly funded religious school that provides an inclusive plurality of faith-based pods housed in a single playground, where religious and non-religious teaching is offered for a period each day in a separate pod. But the children then share core training in math, English, science, social sciences, and fine arts in shared buildings.
Religious diversity is a multifaceted topic that still merits discussion and examination. This video has examined spirituality and religiousness in relation to happiness, Islamophobia and how preconceived notions of Islam and Muslims impact teachers in a culturally sensitive setting, as well as how the Catholic School Board continues to fight to maintain equal funding regardless of discriminatory arguments against them. In order of appearance, these are the articles that we discussed in this video. If you'd like to investigate these topics further, here are some additional resources we found helpful. The following are 3 discussion questions to further the conversation.